And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek here, where we talk all about mobile application development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we are going to talk about particle effects in Kwik. And we're going to talk about how you can do that without having to use an external editor. Also, we're going to talk about code demos. We're going to show, Ed Maurina is going to show us some code that he's been working on from the forums, basically answering questions over there feverishly in the forums. And we're going to look at some sample code snippets, things that are just designed to whet your appetite, hopefully get you interested in the sample code that comes with Corona SDK. All right, so here joining us is Alex Souza from Kwik, and he is going to tell us all about particle effects. Also joining us is Dr. Brian Burton down in Abilene, author of several Corona SDK books. He's going to join us in the conversation. Ed Maurina, of course, we talked about him just a second ago. He's always you got the Flava Ed logo up and running. Man, that is
great.
Also, Greg Pugh from GP Animations is joining us. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Greg, you're going to demo a little bit about these particle effects that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah, I threw together a little example of what you can do with it if you just have a couple of minutes. So
he just threw I love Greg's modesty. I just threw together an example. He's working on a comic strip. He's got books. He's got stuff on on Kindle, not Kindle, on Fire TV, whatever. But you get, is it on Fire Phone yet? Is all your stuff on Fire Phone yet? Come on. I mean, seriously, what have you been doing?
Mostly just drawing lately. Working on that comic strip.
I know it. It's great. We'll put links to that in the show notes. Greg's doing a whole comic strip. Yeah, a whole comic strip around his books and apps. And are you doing that for marketing purposes? Or are you just trying to bone up on your drawing skills, or what's your plans? What's your master plan?
Yeah, it's just to keep busy and to keep the characters going without having to invest in like a full book again. Because writing the book takes forever. So this way I can just once a day quickly draw a comic strip and throw it out there and just keep interest going.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. If you don't follow Greg, you definitely should. He puts out a lot of content around the things that he's doing. He posts sketches of his work and finished products and things like that. And he's always got something coming out, so you definitely should follow him if you're not already. GP Animations. Okay, so let's talk about some things. Anybody besides Alex, besides you, I know you've got a big announcement that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Anybody else on the panel have anything that they want to share?
Yeah, I want to make a quick update.
Yep.
The mobile app development with Corona and beginning mobile app development with Corona, the Chapter 16 has Rotten Apples as a game, which apparently was not working correctly with some of the updates to Corona. I have fixed those issues and used a new version of Lime put out that JY has put out. You can download the code. I haven't got it updated in the book yet, but that is forthcoming. So,
okay.
But if you go to the website, you can download the example code and see it functioning and working.
Do they have to put their email address in or anything like that?
No, that's just if you go to the book's webpage, there's a link for downloading the sample files, and it's right there.
Okay, so go to burtonsmediagroup.com/books. Is that right?
Yeah, that'll get you there.
Yeah, that should get you there. And okay, download it from there. Awesome. And you're working on some updates, right?
Yeah, there's updates. I'm getting ready to put out the composer update for all the books, as well as putting out the final chapter for learning mobile application development so that we're ready to go for the new school year.
Okay, cool.
So, lots of updates forthcoming.
And Ed, how's your daily blogging thing going? I know you've been some of what we're going to look at today is based on the work that you've been doing over there, but I know you're answering forum questions on a regular basis. What's going on there?
Relatively regular. I was originally trying for once a day, which quickly went to just once a day during the work week, and now it's fallen off to whenever catch can. So basically, I don't think I'll be doing one today. But it's going pretty well. I've got like 10 or a dozen answers so far, topics.
That's cool. You know, I like that you're turning these questions into tangible answers outside the forum because, you know, not everybody hangs out in the forum.
Right. Well, I mean, and not everybody asks questions in the forum, which was kind of curious. A lot of folks ask questions over at Stack Overflow. So
yeah, that's interesting. I read an article the other day that said that's become kind of the new way to flex your tech muscle. You know, to go over to Stack Overflow, answer questions, and then be able to show to recruiters or startups or whomever that you're a contributor to the community and that you've got some chops.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did it just to answer. I don't know if you asked the question, but I did it basically just sort of like as a warm-up exercise for myself in the mornings. So, but the balance thing I'm having trouble with right now, which is the reason why I'm not doing one every day anymore, is you end up choosing even a small question can take a long time to solve, review, simplify, write about, you know, the whole deal. I'm sure Brian knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Alpha.
Blogging in and of itself is a very time-consuming process. You know,
Yeah.
especially if you're not a quote-unquote writer, someone who can just kind of sit down.
I think if you are a writer, it makes it even worse because you look at your stuff after you're writing it. Okay, what's that? Oh, I wish I had the link right now. But you remember A River Runs Through It? Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember
title,
the scene where the kid... Okay, so if you haven't seen it, it's a... Long story short, it's a movie about a kid who turns out to be a writer and his brother turns out to be a fisherman, and there's a whole other thing going on there. But the thing that I always took away from that movie I really enjoyed was you get to see this guy when he's a kid, and he's homeschooled by his father, and his father is a minister, and he only teaches reading and writing. And so the kid has these assignments where he's supposed to write something, and he'll come down and show the paper to his dad, and his dad will mark it up and say, give it back to him and say, half as long. Bring it back, half as long. And that's exactly how I feel about writing. It's real easy to write a long article or a long chapter, but to write it half as long and to say everything you're supposed to say is a challenge.
Yeah. I learned early on that when clients come to me and they ask for something to be simple, you know, I just want a simple app. I just want a simple website. I just want a simple whatever. I'm like, oh, that's extra.
Danger. Simple.
Because simple, it's hard. It's easy to make something convoluted and hard and long and big and, you know, gnarly, but make it simple and clean. Oh, that's
they can say
hard.
half as long, and you can say 4 times as much.
Right, exactly. All right, well, good. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? All right. No. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that are going on from the blog. Basically, if you guys haven't been on the blog in a while, the Corona blog, there was a post the other day about Corona Viewer. Have you guys played with this at all? Messed with this? I think this is fantastic. I love, so basically, for those who haven't seen it, Corona Viewer is a way of being able to use Dropbox to essentially synchronize the projects that you're working on your device. So as you develop, you put your files in a special Dropbox folder, and then the devices that that are set up for this have your app running on them. So basically, if you have an iPhone, an iPad, 2 iPads, whatever, an iPad mini, big iPad, whatever, you know, you can. Right now, it's only iOS. You can work on your project, and as you save, just like with the simulator, it will automatically refresh on your devices. So you don't have to like build and then load it onto your device and do all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty doggone cool. Makes it super fast. I mean, even before with the simulator, you know, it was great to be able to see your code in action in a simulated form. But now you're actually running it on the device, which is great. The one caveat to that is that it's not available for Android at the moment, but it is being worked on. And the word that I got was that it's up and running on Android in some form right now, but not polished and ready to go. And the whole thing, of course, is in beta. So if you're on the Android side of things and you're curious about that, you just hold tight. It's coming.
So let me let me ask a question, clarify something.
Yeah.
So if you're like me, I'm a primarily Windows user. I'm all set up on Windows. I do most of my work there. However, off to the left here, I have a Mac where I do my uploads to my iPad and whatnot. In practice, I should be able to set up my app with, what was the name of it again?
Corona Viewer?
Corona Viewer. Get it all set up the first time, and then on my Windows machine have that Dropbox folder and work there, and I should be able to act as if I were doing this on my Mac. I mean, there should be no difference.
Right, exactly. You still need to build for iOS and get it onto the device and all that kind of stuff.
The first time.
The first time, but
yeah. So that's attractive to me because because my step is I work on my PC, then I network my PC drive to my Mac, and then I refresh it on my Mac and rebuild it and upload it, and it's a long process. I mean, even if it's just a small change, it's 5 minutes or whatever, a few minutes, but they add up quickly. So
right,
I must get in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. What's that?
So just work on the Mac.
Right. just work on the
Well,
Mac.
I want to be productive, you see.
Oh, man. We'll avoid that conversation.
By which I mean that I'm not familiar with the scheme of the Mac. There's nothing wrong with the Mac. I'm just years and years of Windows use have dulled my whatever.
Right. You're comfortable in an environment. Got it.
Yes,
so
exactly. Comfortable in one environment.
We talked about this a couple of shows back. Mac in Cloud actually comes with Corona now installed. It's of course the starter version of Corona, but there you can get go to Mac in Cloud. You can get basically rent a Mac for, I think it was something crazy like $20 a month, $25 a month or something. Don't quote me, but it's a relatively affordable as opposed to buying an entire machine, right? Going out and spending, let's say on the low end, $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever on a MacBook. So that's an attractive option as well, especially like you say, Ed, if you just need to build the thing, get it onto your device, and then you're done, right? I mean, kind of work with it from there. So that's definitely an option as well. Mm-hmm. All right, and also on the blog was a tutorial over particle collisions for Liquid Fun. So if you haven't been paying attention, Liquid Fun has been integrated into Corona, which provides liquid body physics. So Corona originally had Box2D, still has Box2D integrated into it that does rigid body physics, and Liquid Fun is Google's version, their physics engine that actually incorporates the fluid bodies and the rigid bodies, the Box2D rigid bodies together. So now we've actually added support for particle collisions. So go check out that tutorial. We'll put a link in the show notes. And then real quick here, a couple of things from Twitter. I don't know if you guys remember Noah Malovich? I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry, Noah. Chunky Apps. His Twitter handle is Chunky Apps. He actually put out City Birds. You guys remember that? We had him on the show. It was great. I mean, it was like playing a whole cartoon. He did all the art. He did all the sounds. He did all the gameplay, everything. Well, he's put out an update, and now he says there's new cities and upgradable power-ups in City Birds itself. So it's the biggest update yet. We'll put a link in the show notes. You guys go check that out. It's a great game. I still have it on my device and play it quite often. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Also, Chris Campbell from Battle of Brothers. He came in and said that he's got a new tutorial for dynamic image selection with Corona and Texture Packer. So that's a good tutorial to check out over there. He's got lots of screenshots, kind of walks you through the whole process, and basically what he's done is he implements dynamic image selection using Texture Packer and Corona to easily select to scale your images across multiple devices. So he's got some tips and tricks for us over there as well. All right. Enough of all that craziness. Let's get to the Geek Speak portion of our show. So, Alex, tell us what's going on with particle effects.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Charles. Last month, I announced the compatibility of Kwik with Particle Design 2, basically allowing people who are using Kwik for creating storybooks or games to bring particles into their projects. The feedback was very positive, but some people start to send me emails asking me, "Hey, but I'm not on a Mac, or I'm not using Particle Designer. How can I edit or create particles inside Kwik without having, to go to another place to do that?" So I started to think about it and say, maybe it's time to create something that could allow people to not only edit external particle JSON files into Kwik, but as well as create particles directly from the plugin. So today, right now, I'm announcing the first plugin of the plugin. It's called Kaboom, and Kaboom is a plugin for Kwik that allows you to create and edit particles directly inside Kwik. And if we have time, let me quickly show you how it works.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. So just before you do that, though, let's back up just a couple of steps. And for anybody who's listening, who's brand new to all this and doesn't really understand what Kwik does, can you just give us the elevator pitch as to what Kwik does?
Sure. Let me know if you are seeing my screen.
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, Kwik is a plugin for Photoshop that allows you to create full Corona apps without any code. Every design that you have in Photoshop becomes a scene, and you can apply commands to layers and make things to animate, transform layers into buttons, create draggable objects, in some lots of things, again, without any code. And the good thing is, if you are a developer or you are working with a developer, Kwik can allow you and your team to bring external code to complement things that the plugin cannot do out of the box. So very common situation, you design your screen, you do the animations, you do everything in Kwik, press a button, Kwik will create the images for you, as well as the entire code. And your team can come later and add external code to that, adding features that are not yet available in the plugin. So for example, I have this Photoshop scene here, and lots of layers. And what I did here, I select this bird layer. For example, when I said, okay, this bird layer is going to be a sprite sheet. And pretty much what I did was to say, okay, let me point to my sprite sheet file, and boom, that's it. Kwik automatically create this code for you. Or you may say, I'm going to animate this bird here from this position to that position. So you have this animation window here, and you can play with positions, times, loops. You can do whatever you want. And when you are ready, all you have to do is to press publish. I'm going to accept this. And Kwik will, again, export all the images for you, as well as the code. So you see directly in the simulator, boom, your page or your entire app if you have an app. Okay, so this is Kwik, entire interface development environment for Corona directly from Photoshop.
Very nice. No, that's a huge time saver in terms of you're already there. You already get the design tool in front of you, and why not just do everything in one space? That's great.
Oh yeah, one thing that people sent me lots of emails a few months ago was when Corona announced Corona Composer. Mm-hmm. They started to say, how can Kwik compare with Composer? Two different things. Composer is a nice tool if you're a developer trying to lay out your screens and you are to start to code. Okay, the main difference is Kwik does that because you are working on Photoshop, so everything that you had laid out in Photoshop is already there, so you don't need to bring again to another tool like Corona Composer and reposition everything. But the big difference is Corona does not write the code for you. Kwik writes the code for you. So yeah, it's a big thing.
And we don't do drawings, right? We don't draw any of the art assets or anything like that. I mean, in Composer, you're bringing something that's already pre-made and you're arranging it like you say, but not. I mean, Photoshop's Photoshop. I mean, that's where the magic happens as visually.
Oh yeah, in Composer, for example, you cannot bring an audio file or create a paintbrush, for example. those examples are something that Kwik already has out of the box. So just press a button, for example, if you decide to do like a canvas area for painting, all you have to do is to come here and say, okay, set this area as a canvas. Boom, Kwik will automatically write the code for you. Or if you want to do some kind of parallax effect, it's lots of things are already pre-made into Kwik. But let's talk, if it's okay, about Kaboom.
Yeah.
So this way I'm going to give time for the rest of the participants in the show. So like I said, last month I added to Kwik this ability to create particle replacements. So the big idea here is to select a layer and say, okay, instead of drawing this rectangle here, I want to use a particle that I created in another program, for example. So I can come here and say, okay, let me point to a particle effect that I have created in other product. So let's say I think I have some kind of fire here. Okay, so I have this fire that I created in Particle Designer 2. So I can import this, press publish, and again, you see my bird burning right now. This particle effect was again created in another tool, Particle Designer. So the idea of Kaboom, as I said, Kaboom is a plugin that you purchase and you install, and it automatically starts to work inside Kwik. So the big difference now is if I come back into Kwik here and click this rectangle one here, which is my replacement, and I click this button here, which is provided by Kaboom. So if you don't have Kaboom, you will not see this button. So I can come here and click Particles, and this is the main interface of Kaboom. And you can start to do lots of things. You can, for example, change the image of your particle. So I'm not going to use this one. Let me see if I have something different here. I hadn't planned to do that, but anyways. Let me pick some kind of image here. So let me pick this one
we know how
here.
the live development goes.
Yeah. So I'm going to use this frog as an example. So let's say this is the new particle that I want to create, but you can do much more than that. You can work with gravities. I mean, all the parameters that you can work in a particle design, you can bring it here, but also you can hit this live preview. And now you see live on your simulator how this new particle will come with this image as your main image. And you can even say, you know what, I'm going to change the color. I'm going to put this in blue. So I don't need to hit anything. Automatically, Kaboom will update the preview, the live preview. And if you click OK, create, you can easily publish it again. And now the bird has a different kind of, cloud following him. So as I said, Kaboom can be used not only for particle editing, like we just did, but you can create particles from the scratch as well. So again, let me select the rectangle particle, and I have the create particle. If I don't know what to do, all I have to do is to use the first example, hit live preview for the first time, and I'm seeing that this is the fire that is coming. But my bird, for example, is flying from left to right, so it would be nice to have it in the proper direction. So I know that all I have to do is to change this angle of emission to 0, for example. And again, when I do that, now I see. And let me change the color to, I don't know, yellow. Again, here we go. So create and republish. And then here we have the bird flying with this yellow, whatever you call it. And that's the thing with Kaboom. And I invited Greg to come join us today because Greg has done some nice tutorials with Kaboom already, and one of them is already posted in our website. Just went live right now. So if Greg wants to show you a bit more, or if you have more questions about Kwik or Kaboom, I'll be around.
Okay, excellent. That looks great. Yeah, Greg, show us what you've got. What have you been working on?
Yeah, last week Alex called me on Skype and asked if I'd like to test out Kaboom for him. So, he showed me like what he just showed you, like how it basically works. You just install it and then you have it. And he didn't really give me like a in-depth tutorial or anything, but you really don't need it because it's very simplistic to figure out, but it does a lot of work. So all I did was I did a quick background drawing in Flash because that's my preferred drawing tool, and brought it into Photoshop. And then I just drew a little oval above the thing of wood here, and then I called it fire. And then I opened up in Kaboom, and I created new particles. I used the standard one that came with the software, just this little faded circle, changed it to orange, played around with some of the settings and the gravity, hit create, and then I figured, well, if there's going to be some fire, let's try to do some smoke as well. So right above it, I actually started the smoke emitter with another oval and a layer called smoke, and this time I used kind of like the same effect, same shape, but this time I made it black and changed some of the gravity and the lifespan to give it a smokier effect. And then I hit create and publish, and that gives you that nice little fire effect down here by the wood, and then up here it emits the smoke that you can see.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see on the video, but yeah, if you look just above the tree, the black tree line there, in the blue, you can almost see little dots dancing for smoke or whatever.
Yeah, this tutorial is on our website, so if you decide to get Kaboom, you can follow it step by step. As I said, Kaboom has been launched just now, so premiering the show. It's gonna cost $50, but until July the 13th, or the day that Corona announced the next public release, so whatever comes later, there's a promo price, so it's gonna be $30 again. July 13th, the 13th, or the day that Corona's announced the new public build. So,
all right,
it's a $20 discount, and again, you can play with that. Unfortunately, there is no trial version of Kaboom.
Well, I think we can all see exactly what it does, right? I mean, it's no mystery. So you either want it or you don't. And I think for $30, or even for $50, that's a huge time saver as far as productivity and workflow are concerned. And so, Greg, did you play that again? Play that whole thing again? So now, one of the things I noticed, is it in this example or is it the other one? Is it the example that you're working on now where you actually made the shadows move as well? Like the character actually has shadows that move?
Yeah, so just to make it a little bit more elaborate, I used my Maddie Bear character and then gave her a little hot cup of hot chocolate here with some steam coming out of it. Same thing, just made an oval, made the color round, white with the same basic round shape, and just played around with the size of it. And then to make the shadows flicker, all I did was draw the character sitting on this log and add these shadows. And then I drew a second version where the shadows were slightly moved. And then just like how Alex was doing with the bird flying, it's just a sprite of, let's see. It's just a sprite playing the two frames back and forth. So it just makes it a little bit more realistic with the flickering of the flames. But, really, this whole thing, I think, took me like 5 minutes. Well, and that's why I love Kwik and Kaboom. It's so quick and easy to use.
I like to see that you're taking and you're essentially creating shapes. You said, okay, I created an oval here and I created an oval here, and then I set the properties of those things, and bam. So that's pretty nice.
Can you import existing projects into Kwik? Existing Lua projects?
No, you cannot import this because every developer writes code in a different way, so there is no import thing. You have to start a project direct from Kwik in order to edit it. But if you do so, again, it's very easy to create or to bring external code into Kwik. So let me, in 2 seconds, just show you how easy it is to. There are several ways to bring external code into Kwik. Hopefully you are watching my screen again, see my screen again. You can come and do the most simple one, which is add an external library. So all you have to do is to point to an external library. So this is a way to do that. Another way to do that is directly writing code into the main Lua page. So you can point to an external file. So and Kwik will bring this external file and put the code in the main web page. And you may have several different codes. You can add code in different pages. So very similar situation, but here the main difference is you are just adding the code in my example here, page 1. So you can do the code in the scene creation or in the scene show, or even in the scene hide or disposal. So you can pretty much just hit a button and do that. And also you can do a code directly into buttons or any kind of actions that you have. For example, you can come here and say, okay, I'm going to add an external code in this particular button. And the procedure is the same, just points to the external file, and Kwik will bring it for you. So, and that's the way. And another way that you have to bring external code or to work in different parts, which again it's common in small teams, is, for example, if you are a designer, you maybe work on pages 1 to 5, while your designer developer is working on pages 6 to 10, for example. You have this ability to come here and say, this is a team project, and for example, I am the designer. I'm going to start to work on page 10. While my guy, the other guy using Kwik, let's say in the UK, is going to be working from page 1 to 9. So you can do things like that.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, there's no way to import code. It would be amazing, but I don't have artificial intelligence to do that yet.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone there. Even Macromedia and Adobe, back in the day when they were just now creating code generators, they ran into those same types of issues, where you could export stuff out, but once you changed it, it's changed, right? So there's no way for the machine to be that smart. If it did, what would be the point? You just tell it, machine, do this, and it would just do it. Okay, so let's talk real quick about a few things. One is, do you have to be a master at Photoshop in order to use this?
No, in fact, some people do not believe me, but I am not a master of Photoshop. All I can do here is to use the basic layer stuff. And this is pretty much what you need. And I think most people, almost everybody, knows already how to work with layer positioning. Mm-hmm. And this is all you need. The idea behind Kwik is to use your designs or your composition as pages, and the layers as components. Layers can be rendered as is. For example, I have this mountain here, and this mountain is going to be rendered as is, as a mountain. Or you have the concept of replacements. You say, okay, like this rectangle 1. This rectangle is not going to be the image of the rectangle. It's going to be, for example, a sprite sheet or a particle or a map. So some people ask, can I do business apps with Kwik? Yes, you can. So there's map replacement, for example, or web thing. So the concept behind replacements are, do not render the Photoshop layer as is, but bring an external code to it. And this is the way it works. You don't need to be, again, as I said, a master in Photoshop. Kwik will read everything that you do in Photoshop. So if you apply an effect here, Kwik will read this effect and put it for you. But if you are just a plain guy using Photoshop, or girl, like for example in this example, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Photoshop, Adobe has made a big inroads into making Photoshop affordable, accessible to everybody these days as well. I mean, we talked about this before the show started, that if you're using the cloud version of Photoshop, you don't even have to spend all the upfront money to have Photoshop on your machine. So that's a huge advantage as well.
Yeah, and then you can. I believe you can, if you decide to purchase just Photoshop or to subscribe just Photoshop. I think you're gonna pay $9.99 per month, or the pack Photoshop plus Lightroom right now is $19. So I mean, it's not a big deal like it was in the past. I mean, in the past, I remember people call me and say, can you create Kwik for GIMP or GIMP? I don't know how people use that. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I cannot do this for GIMP, but because people are so afraid and scared about Photoshop price. Again,
Right.
it's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely come way down. So now you touched on something a moment ago that I want to be sure that we emphasize, and that you said that you could create apps, business apps, with Kwik. What types of apps can you create with Kwik?
I mean, business apps are a bit more complicated than store books, for example, or even games, because in almost, I'd say, 100% of the case, you're going to need external code because the logic behind what your app needs to is something that I cannot predict and pre-code for you. So I've seen some magazines created with Kwik, some catalog apps created with Kwik, and all of them are in our showcase. So if you go to our website and click the Kwik showcase part, you're going to see some of them. As I said, I try to put as many widgets and components that you may use on a business app. But in the case of business app, again, in most cases, you're going to need to add a bit of external code to control the logic. But for games, for example, it was some kind of surprise for me. People have done some very interesting games, and in some cases, in fact, in all the cases that I know, without any external code. And even seeing some of them today, I say, wow, how could you do that? And they said, no, just using this or that feature, and that's it.
Oh, very nice. So yeah, I'm here on the showcase, and I'm flipping through, and you've got it all broken out into business apps, educational apps, games, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you were under the misconception that Kwik only does storybooks, which I was. I mean, for the longest time, when I went to the site, I saw lots of great showcases about books and things like that, and I would always show it to people as, hey, well, if you want to do things visually, without code, here's Kwik, and I used to give the storybook example of things, but yeah, clearly you can do a lot more with it than just that. So we'll put a link in the show notes to the showcase, and then I encourage everybody to go check out the games that are there, and also the business apps and things like that as well.
Oh, cool. Just first example, the Stone versus Caveman game was done by just one guy without any coding skills. He integrated with Particle Candy. We didn't have Kaboom or Particles yet. So it has thousands of downloads, and it has ads. It has several things that, again, are just pre-coded by Kwik. And it's a pretty addictive game as well. Very good reviews. So, and it's free, so you can go there and install and see what you can do, again, without any code.
It's interesting that you say that it has ads, because there's two things that I noticed when I first started playing the game. One was you don't catch the rocks. That's not the point of the game. It's to avoid the rocks.
To avoid the rocks.
For some reason, he's got his little arms up, so I thought he was trying to.
No, but some rocks you have to catch, so in order to get more points.
Okay, right. Okay, so there you go. Maybe I wasn't totally lost.
They call the ghost and the freeze rocks, so they are good ones. But anyways.
And the other part that I noticed is that even though the ads are there, what they do is they show the ads in between the levels. They don't, like some people, the ads are just there. It's a free game. The ads are continuously there, but they just show the ads at the time when you're at breakpoints in the game, almost like, I guess, not interstitials kind of do, but they were doing banner ads and not showing them during gameplay, which I thought was very respectful of the consumer, that it doesn't interrupt the gameplay, but they're still going to show you the ads at an appropriate time. I thought that was
yeah. This is something out of the box in Kwik. You can say when you add an ad, you can tell the entire application to run the ad in all pages or just in the particular page. So, and again, Kwik will do the code for you.
Very nice. All right. Well, that's great. Well, yeah, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes. People should definitely go check that out. So that's Kaboom. You can get that until July 13th or until the next public release of Corona for $30, and after that it'll be $50, which I still think is an excellent value if you're going to buy a tool that's going to speed up your productivity and give you everything all in one place. Why not do it? Start with the graphic design, the Photoshop, and then be able to do it all in one place. That's fantastic. So
thanks, Charles. Thank you, guys. And thanks, Greg, for the demo.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. All right, Ed. I think what did I see a finger? Do we get do we still have time to do some demos?
You know that happens on this show. Somebody says something, it gives me an idea, and then I have to write it down.
Are we back to that again, or are we to the part where we've derailed your week?
Yes. My regular comment. I think we're doing okay. I don't actually have Photoshop, so I'm going to ask a joking question. Can you make it for Paint Shop Pro?
Yeah. Well, Alex had to drop off, but no, I don't think he's going to make it for Paint Shop Pro.
Thanks for answering.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. He's still there. Oh, you know what it is? You still got your screen share on, Alex.
Yeah.
So I saw myself twice. I didn't think you were.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were there.
Like really on the show.
Yeah. He's on there twice.
Is it removed right now?
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
All you got to do
yeah.
is click the little green thing in the left screen share. It goes back to camera.
I tell you though, we talked about this before the show. For the longest time, I used Photoshop Elements, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 or $80, I think. Which for value-wise, the only thing that I used in Photoshop was, like Alex was saying, a lot of the layers and some of the just general photo editing stuff. But these days, Photoshop's so affordable. I mean, why not just go? Especially if you're going to share files with any team members or anything, and you want to know that you have a standardized format. To me, that's the biggest thing. I hate getting files from somebody that's like not in a format. And then I'm like, now I got to go get some other file.
Oh, I export to Photoshop format for
That doesn't always work though.
It doesn't always work, but I do the best I can for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, I wasn't talking about you. No.
No, you're not. I'm just grabbing the. You know how it is.
Yeah, right.
No, I was gonna say I would also use Photoshop, except it's the same thing with Windows. I've been using it for so long, Paint Shop, that I know everything about it. Not just the layers, but I know all the little doodads and masking, and I don't. It's an investment of time. Although Photoshop is nobody write me any hate mail now, but Photoshop is superior. It is the gem of all art tools that I'm aware of. I mean, because it's been around for so long, it's really like the center of most artists' toolbox. What do you think, Greg? Is it pretty much at the center of your toolbox, or?
When a tool becomes a verb.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's success.
I've offended Greg so much that he left.
Yeah, when it becomes a verb, you know it's a part of your extension of whatever it is you do, for sure. Well, Ed, do you think we'll be able to do some demos, or do you want to?
Yeah,
sure. You just want me to pull up the code snippets here?
Yeah, let me share my screen first, and
Okay.
then we can make a choice.
Okay. Now, I know you've been going over, like I said, going over to the forums and looking at people's questions, which I think, again, is great because you're pulling out the essence of the conversation, right? Sometimes there can be a lot of back and forth, and it's hard to follow the conversation, and you're just pulling out the meat of it.
Yeah, I kind of I hear the question I want to hear when I go over to the forums. That's not exactly right, but what I try to do is I try to look at the question they're asking and get to the core of what they're really going after. Because sometimes people will ask a question, and you'll think, well, yeah, but that's not really what you're having troubles with. You're having troubles with this other facet of the issue. So some matter of interpretation is good, right? I mean, that's right.
Answering the wrong question does not give you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've done that before. I've answered the literal in the forums, answered the literal question, and spent a lot of time on it, and then had the person come back and say, "Oh, well, that's not what I really meant. What I meant was," and at that point, I'm like, "Well, what I mean is, I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I really wanted to help you, but." I guess that was my fault. So some
Sorry,
of the questions
I tried to answer your question, and instead I got booted.
Oh, I thought maybe you tried to turn your microphone back on and hung yourself up instead.
No, my Safari just completely froze.
Okay. Well, I thought either that or I offended you. So back to the question. The question is, don't hang up this time, all right?
Okay.
Is Photoshop sort of at the center of your toolkit, or are you more evenly distributed across, giving fair love to each tool that you have?
Oh no,
He's a Flash snob.
yeah, it's just Flash and Photoshop. Those are the only two ones I use on a regular basis. I'll open up Sketchbook Pro or Mischief and stuff just to play around, but usually if I have to get work done, it's gonna be Flash and Photoshop.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I mean, you've got other tools for specific needs, but Photoshop, in terms of what Photoshop does, is the go-to tool. So.
And there's so many times. Even as a novice myself, I'm using some other tool. I'm like, just why does it work like Photoshop works? I mean, even tools within the Adobe family. Like we had this conversation before. Illustrator. I'm like, you just reach out and you just want to do it the way you do it in Photoshop. So
it's kind of strange, right? That they've got this their crown jewel, which is like the right way to do it, or the common way. Let's put it that way.
Common way to do it.
And then they have these one-off tools where they've done like an experiment and they've chosen some other way. And I feel like it used to be now you've got the lower price barrier, but it used to be that people might choose one of the other tools first because it was cheaper and say, "Ugh, this is terrible," and then never come back to Adobe.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but see, Photoshop is like you say, the crown jewel, the standard, the commonly used thing. To me, all the other tools are specialty items. Like Illustrator is a very specific group of people.
Yeah,
and Photoshop's more the everybody's tool.
For a novice artist, they might say, "Well, I've got Photoshop and I've got Illustrator," for example. Maybe that's not the best choice. But let's choose one of their other photo editing tools, and they say, "Well, this has got most of what I think I need," and then they would go with that, only to find out that's not what they really needed.
I don't know.
Well, it just depends on how you use it as well. I mean, I use a lot of InDesign to create vectors because I know it works and I can work with it. And then I save them as native Illustrator files and then drag them into Photoshop, because then when I save out from Photoshop, it's a perfect vector. Instead of saving it as a PNG and then have to scale it.
Yeah, no, see, that's why I keep coming back to things like Flash or Illustrator, because of the vector aspect of things. But ultimately, I just want to do vector stuff in Photoshop. I just want the controls to work in Photoshop. So, okay, there you go. There's my frustration.
Okay, so where were we? I said you said I've been writing answers to people's questions.
And we're probably not going to have time to cover all of them. So why don't you just show us where we can get because I know you've already done all the legwork and the research and the write-ups and the videos and all whatnots.
Right. So you can go to my homepage, which is just roaminggamer.com, if you want to see the articles.
Recently redesigned.
And then, I'm sorry?
Recently redesigned, reorganized.
Oh yeah, recently redesigned and open to more redesign as I find other things that I need to change. But it's all a question of time, and I kind of like it. This is a decent layout. And most of these articles come with code, and in some cases I include the code directly inside. Can you see that okay? Yeah. I include the code directly in line with the article if I'm trying to talk about a particular facet of that answer. But you can also go over to GitHub, and I'll give you a link to this so we can put it in the show notes. And I've got a free stuff repository where I've got a bunch of other free stuff, some of the things that we talked about here on the show under the Corona Geek After Talk or Corona Geek area. And there is a section called Ask Ed. And under this, there'll be the year 2014. And then month by month, I'll add new folders to it. So this is June, so 06. And let's see, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 7 articles worth of code here. So there are a few articles that I did not write code for. But the point here is you can get the individual articles on my, or it's really, I shouldn't call them articles. What's smaller than an article? Let's call it a blog. Okay, they are blogs. So the answers to people's questions on my site and the code over on my Git.
I was gonna ask you about that because you know, sometimes I see information communicated in little snippets and chunks and stuff like that, and that's great on different sites. But you know, it's always good to have that kind of finished product and be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, here's what it's supposed to look like all together, right? In case you miss something along the way.
I'm not calling you lazy, but I know people are lazy like me.
Yeah.
And they don't like to cut, copy, paste, and they don't like to see just like one tiny part of the answer.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see the whole thing. It helps you. I think it helps you grok the answer a little better if you see it in situ. Yes,
Right.
grok.
Well, and you mentioned it before, right? You mentioned it before, which is exactly what we've been talking about. I think this whole show, which is time. You know, Kwik and Kaboom save you time. Your answers and the code that you provide saves you time. You know, Corona saves you time, and that's really the value proposition of all of this, because if you can spend the time to cobble together all the little pieces of a solution, or to set up something and get it to running and see if that's the thing that you need, but that's going to take you, what, 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour if something goes wrong, and then at some point you go, oh, that wasn't what I was looking for at all.
Right. I think a working solution that you can just download and run, or a video at the very least,
right,
it is something that anybody who wants to answer a question should do if they want more than one person to read that answer, because it just conveys so much more.
It makes sense, and from and just generally speaking, from a marketing SEO kind of standpoint, providing videos and providing code snippets and providing all these, providing things that are all resources that point back to you as a community member, right? So not necessarily you, Ed, but you and the general you.
No, everything must back to me. Everybody get that. Come on.
Everybody point to Ed. It helps.
Baby.
It not only helps the person that you're providing the information to, but it also helps you as the provider of the information. So that's something important to remember as well. And one of the things that we're doing on Corona University, I don't know if you guys have seen this kind of on the channel, the Corona Labs channel, is we've created some videos, or just videos of the sample code running, right? So it's like, here's a sample code, and it does this little specific thing. And the idea behind that is to show these, even though sample code is included in all the, in every SDK download, and it's all there, and they are all these little bite-sized pieces of code that you can run in the simulator or run on your device. It's still easier to watch a video that runs for 60 seconds that goes, oh, I see what it's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's invaluable to people who are trying to learn how to do the mobile app development, because quite often you just don't know where to start.
Yeah, it's hard to translate the code into what it's actually going to look like at the end.
Going through, okay, I'm going to import this into whatever my editor is, open it, run it. Oh, I can look at it on YouTube and see what's happening. That makes complete sense. And I think it's very valuable for people who are just getting started. Yeah,
absolutely. So Ed, give us pick out some of these that you think that we should pay particular attention to.
So I had one more thing I wanted to say here. For people who are listening here, or listening later, whatever, listening later, let's see if I get this here. Where is it? That was not what I wanted to do. If you're writing a question in the forums and you want to increase the likelihood that I will answer your question, oh, for crying out loud, Google's freaking out. Sorry. I'm trying to click on a window, and it keeps doing this thing where it's... I'll just go to the whole screen. There. All right, there it is. So what you can do is put a tag on your question, which when you write a question in the forums, you have the option at the top of the screen to add tags. Just add the tag Ask Ed with a space. Ask space Ed, and I will search on that.
Not Ask It.
Yeah, not Ask It, which was, I'm not searching on. So if you have Ask It a question, I will not, I might still answer it, but if you ask Ed a question. So everybody loves numbers, and I found that when I was answering questions, one of the things that was going to come up over and over was, how long does it take to do this, or how much memory does this thing use? So I said, all right. before I go and answer any of these questions and write the same code over and over, I will simply provide a small module that you can use to measure, to basically benchmark your code. And the two kinds of benchmarks you can do are memory usage and duration of execution. And so the way you do it is you just go to the article or go to my Git and download the simple bench module, which is just a single file, and go ahead and include it in your project. And then if you were, for example, curious about, let's say, localization. So the concept of localization is that you take either a function or a table or some other global or within a library object, and you bring it closer to where you're using it. That's probably not exactly the definition, but the way I kind of think of it. So for example, a common example of this is the square root function. The square root function lives under the math library, or perhaps you would think of it as a module. And there's two ways you can do this. Let me bring up the codes to make this a little more clear. Sorry about this. Wrong example. Good job.
And okay, so we will provide, just so everybody knows, we will provide a link to the specific article that you're talking about,
Yes.
and the Git repo. I'll make sure to do that.
All right. So the question is there a way for me to make square root faster? And if I know about localization, how much faster is a localized square root versus a square root that is living in the math library? So what I've done here is I've written two different versions of this function that do basically the same thing. The first one, for 100,000 iterations, will calculate the square root of I. So 1, 2, etc., etc. And the way I do the call is I call directly to math.squareroot, which is every time I do this, basically I'm dereferencing the location of square root and doing a little bit of extra work to bring that over to where I'm at and running it. Or the faster version is I have localized it and simply using the local keyword, any name I want to give it, and so I usually put a little m and then something like square root, or let's say if I was doing the random function, it would be local mrand equals system.random, something like that. I suppose that should be srand, but so I've localized square root, and instead of calling math.squareroot, I call my localized version. And I won't actually run it for you. You can run this example, but in this simple example, you get about a 30% speed up in execution time for a large number of calls to square root.
And why is that? Just for
why is that?
Yeah.
Well, because the way Lua works is that when I'm dereferencing this function, is every time I dereference it, it has code that has to execute that locates it, does some massaging to get that function in the right context, and then finally executes it. Whereas with local, when I've localized it, I've done the dereferencing part and the massaging in advance. So all it has to do is run the function. I mean, there's still a couple of little steps in there that are different than if I had written like local function something. It's not exactly the same, but it's removed enough of those extra steps that you get a code speed up. Because the part of that makes an interpreted language slow is all that little dynamic stuff that it has to do. And there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes on with dereferencing things and not using the right words here, but choosing the context of execution for functions and objects. Another thing is let's say I had a table that was in the global space, and I wanted to speed things up. Well, I could simply let's say I had a table called Bob with 100 entries or 1,000 entries. I could localize that by saying So Bob is my original table, and LBob is my localized reference to it. Simply by doing this and then referencing LBob in my code here within this file, I'm speeding up the access. I'm skipping several dereferencing steps and math calculations that go on in the processor to look in the right location in memory, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so you've just told me that I need to go back and redo some of the code that I was working on this weekend.
No, actually, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times I see these questions in the forums.
Yeah.
How do I do this thing to make it faster? And my question always comes back, why do you need to make it faster? Is it slow?
Right.
And in fact, if you look at this particular blog, one of the points that I try to make, oh no, not this one. So let's go. Another one that I answered was.
Yeah, you and Sergey got into this discussion the other day as to whether or not something, what's the value of optimizing something that doesn't need to be optimized.
Exactly. I'm not going to be able to find it now. So you have to go read through all my blog posts. But the point that I was trying to make is people get so hung up on, oh, how do I do this the fastest way, or what's the quickest way to do this thing? And at the end of the day, it was moot, because the part of their code execution that dominates is some other thing that they couldn't optimize anyway.
Sage advice.
It's always great to be fast, but if you're focusing on fast before functional, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Very
to
cool.
sound sort of lectury.
No,
But,
that's
I don't know how many times I've seen questions in the forums like this. It's like, why are you focusing on speed? Or
Well,
why are you so in love with using OOP?
Yeah, I think it stems out of our fear to do it wrong, air quotes, and that this is the best practice, or this is the way that other people are going to expect it, and at some point that even that someone might look at our code and be horrified that we did something that way, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's more practical. It's like, well, does it do what you want it to do?
Right.
Okay.
At the end of the day, what's going to pay the bills is a functioning app.
Yeah.
a published functioning app. Yeah.
An app that's playable, but 10% slower than it could have been. As long as it's playable.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and you can always optimize as needed. So, okay.
Right.
Well, very cool.
At least one of my articles also points out a link, but folks should go and develop their apps, evaluate them on a few devices at least, and then if they're not happy with the performance, go out there and what's the word I'm searching for here when you examine?
Refactor?
Sorry?
No? Refactor?
No, when you measure it, it is...
Metrics?
No, I know what word you're looking for. It's...
Qualitative.
You've said it on the show.
Yeah, I know. But this is exactly what happens, is you're talking and your brain goes, aha! I will now take that word out of your vocabulary for the next... How many minutes in the show? We're 5 minutes over, but if there were time left, it will be gone for that much time plus 1 minute.
That's right.
So, anyways, it's in one of my articles. Run your code on devices. If you're not happy with it, go out there and get some tools to measure where the hotspots are, locate those hotspots, and then optimize that.
And you still have your tool, right? Don't you still have the meter?
Yeah, sure. I've got RG Meter, which gives you an overall view of sort of like what's going on in terms of memory usage, general frame rates over time, and at the moment, so you can see your historical behavior as well as your real-time behavior.
Okay.
But there is another tool out there which I didn't even bother trying to write a version of because this tool is inexpensive and it works well, and I cannot remember the name of it. It's by My Developer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that before on the show. You'll have to send me a link and I'll put it in the show notes, but I don't remember the name of it at the moment.
So after the fact, there'll be a link.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us this week. Thanks for being here. And Alex, thanks for sharing Kaboom with us. You guys don't forget to go over to quicksure.com. Check that out. And until July 13th, like you said, there is a promo price for $30. You don't want to miss out on that. This is a time saver. Definitely something that you need to look into if you're interested in doing any sort of visual development and basically building something without having to write code. It's great. Definitely worth the investment and the time. So we'll be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific talking about mobile app development using Corona SDK. Until then, be sure to go out to iTunes and rate the podcast. If you listen to us on Stitcher, thank you very much. You can always thumbs up the show there or leave a comment. YouTube, thumbs up us there, leave a comment. We'll try to answer those questions if we can. And you can also go over Facebook, Twitter, Google+, anywhere that you are, basically we try to be. And we appreciate it if you just thumbs up, share, do all that kind of business. All right. Until then, till next Monday, have a great week, guys, and happy coding.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.